Part 126. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1251. Stop. Red Boy Fairy, why are you so crazy? If you don't stop, don't blame us for joining forces. The Red Boy Fairy was too quick, and when she was angry, she took action without any thought. By the time some great tribulation masters intervened to stop him, countless monks had already died without a sound. It's not that these tribulation stages can't stand it anymore, but they are afraid that the Red Girl Fairy will go crazy and destroy the fairy treasures in this formation. The rays of light from the formation just now were so bright that it was clear that this place was extraordinary. Even if it is extraordinary, there is also a fairy treasure in it. Haha. You want to stop me? Under such circumstances, the Red Girl Fairy's self-identity also changed. Humph, you have offended the public, don't blame me for not giving you face. Previously, although the Red Girl Fairy acted domineeringly, her ultimate goal was to break the formation. But now she wants to ruin this formation, and these people naturally don't want to. Although you may not be able to obtain the fairy treasure, there is no hope if it is destroyed. It's about the path to immortality, who is willing? So that's it, the Red Child Fairy's anger suddenly disappeared, her clothes began to fade, and her face became more youthful again. She giggled again, then let's see how your brothers and sisters break the formation later. Nausea. These two words came to everyone's mind, but they knew that if they provoked the Red Girl Fairy again, they would inevitably take action. But fortunately, for the sake of the overall situation, all of them endured it. In the formation, Zhu Feng was still in shock. He had already expected that if he entered the formation, he would definitely arouse the anger of the Red Girl Fairy. This was the case just now when the formation kept shaking. I thought that this formation would not be able to hold up the Red Child Fairy, so I planned to take the opportunity to hide in the Demon Refining Tower. At least I could save my life. Even if the formation was destroyed, it would be okay. Unexpectedly, this formation actually blocked the attack of Red Boy Fairy. That is the period of transcending tribulation. What he didn't expect was that the formation shook a few times and then stopped. It should have been the rest of the tribulation period who stopped us. Zhu Feng guessed the thoughts of those who were going through the tribulation period, so he relaxed a little and prepared to look for Zhu Yun in the formation. Master is in the mortal world, and the only one left is eldest brother. I don't know if eldest brother is here. While Zhu Feng was muttering to himself, he saw a figure flashing in front of him. It is the incarnation of wood. Zhu Feng, didn't I ask you to practice well in the mortal world? Why did you come to this spiritual world? Also, was it you who made all the noise before? Mu Jiahua frowned, very dissatisfied with Zhu Feng. Zhu Feng said quickly, brother, listen to me. In just over 10 breaths, Zhu Feng had already explained clearly, and Mu Jianying's face looked extremely ugly. He set up a large formation and prepared to enter the fragments of the universe. He believed that after attracting the main body, he would definitely come to the main formation and find the fragments. Unexpectedly, the outside world not only moved, but also found someone breaking in. I didn't feel the breath of the main body, but I didn't expect it to be Zhu Feng. After hearing this, he squeezed the formation technique, looked towards the outside world, and his expression changed again. Dozens of people are in the tribulation stage, and there are many Mahayana stages and integration stages. What would happen if the fragments were discovered by them? Brother, I have an idea, Zhu Feng said quickly. My demon refining tower is extremely strong, and even your chaos sword couldn't damage it at that time. How about you hide in this tower with me? That's all we can do for the time being. The wooden incarnation pondered for a moment. The patience of those people would eventually disappear, and if the formation was broken by force in the end, Even if the formation was made of medium-grade spiritual stones, it would not be able to last a few times. But now, he had no choice. After getting the consent of Mu incarnation, the two quickly walked to the main formation. Zhu Feng released the demon refining tower and transformed into its original form, and then made an appointment with Mu incarnation to meet on the other side of the stone mountain. After entering the copper gate, the two separated, but fortunately everything went smoothly, and they were very familiar with each other in the demon refining tower. Mu incarnation even reached the foot of the rocky mountain first. "Brother, do you plan to set up a formation here?" Zhu Feng's eyes lit up when he saw that Mu incarnation had prepared many spiritual stones. Why didn't he think of this? The stone mountain is a little different from the space inside the tower, so it is easy to be discovered. If a trick is laid to hide it from those people, maybe all those people will be trapped in the tower. No, let's go to the top of the mountain to set up a formation. Mu Jiahua didn't explain, turned around and left. Zhu Feng understood immediately. If those people were trapped in the tower, they would inevitably still be a hidden danger. Even if they were all trapped here, it would not be that easy for him to get out of the tower. This is tantamount to trapping yourself. The meaning of the wooden incarnation is to block the light door leading to the second floor. In this way, even if those people find the light door, it is the light door at the foot of the mountain. Following the light door, they will leave the demon refining tower. Big Brother is indeed a big brother. Zhu Feng's eyes flashed and he quickly followed. You go in first and wait for me on the second floor. After Mu incarnation gave the order, he took the position of the light sect and the I formation, and first set up the 9 turns and 9 suns formation, and then he set up the Dozhuan Seeing Shift formation. Except for the way up the mountain and the way down the mountain leading to the exit light door, everything is trapped in the formation. After thinking for a moment, Mu incarnation arrived at the foot of the mountain again and arranged a formation again. 5 elements trap spirit formation. The formation requires enlightenment, but also requires cloth. Only through actual formation can one truly grasp the essence of the formation. After doing all this, Mu incarnation came to the second floor, where Zhu Feng had been waiting for a long time. Brother, are you going to the 9th floor? Mu Jianying shook his head and said, to prevent accidents, we will cover the light gates on each floor with formations. Outside the formation, a group of people who were in the tribulation stage gathered all the surviving monks, asked them one by one, and found out several monks who knew the formation. There is the nascent soul, there is the soul transformation, there is the refining the void, and there is also the integration and Mahayana stages. They had thousands of ways to break through this formation, but they could not open the formation gate without damaging the formation. They each expressed their opinions, and the quarrel was in full swing, but they could not find a solution. 9 is the number of the sun, and very few people use it to set up formations. They are proficient in formations, but most of them are based on yin and yang, the 3 talents of heaven, earth, and man, and the 4 directions of divine beasts. Although there are few changes, the power and effectiveness are not bad. Yasuanhu had a sudden idea and studied this formation, and it was mastered by Zhu Yun. I can't wait any longer. The red-haired fairy has long since lost her patience, and her face has turned into that of a young woman. There are many opportunities in the secret realm of ascension. If you can't wait, no one will stop you if you look for it elsewhere. Fairy Xianxia always remembered that she had suffered a defeat earlier, and this was the time for her to fight back. Because she has the same interests as everyone else. You want to fight with me? The face of the red girl fairy once again changed from 30 years old to 40 years old, and fine lines appeared in the corners of her eyes. I don't want to, you do. Fairy Xianxia also smiled, and several people in the tribulation stage beside her slowly stood up. Those formation masters said that they could find a way to break the formation in one day at most. No one would want to be ruined by the red girl fairy at this juncture. The secret realm of Xianxia has existed for a very long time, no less than a day or two. If one could obtain the immortal treasure, it would be equivalent to earning 1,000 years. If one day bets 1,000 years, anyone can settle the score. You want to find the fairy treasure, why don't you go somewhere else, instead of letting me wait in this place where I want to kill someone? The red girl fairy's mind was full of Zhu Feng. She was the first person whose realm was lower than hers and could survive 10 breaths after deceiving her. After waiting for one day, it will be more than 10 hours. You have been cultivating for tens of thousands of years, but you can't wait for this day? Fairy Red Boy, you have killed a lot of people, are you really short of time? Beside, an old man also glared angrily. Damn old man, aren't you afraid that I will take this grudge and settle the score with you when things get better? The old man's face did not change and he continued, Red Boy Fairy, I am not afraid of you. If you want to fight, I will accompany you. However, after the Ascension secret realm is over, you and I will go to the top of Kunlun to fight for 300 rounds. Fight him for 3 days and 3 nights. Giggle, giggle, suddenly, the red-haired female fairy suddenly laughed out loud, and her face returned to the past, with a lustful look, Lingzun Sword Master, I'm afraid that you won't be able to withstand my sister's abilities. It's time to surrender. The Lingzun swordsman was furious. Even a male cultivator could not bear the humiliation. As soon as the sword was unsheathed, he suddenly felt a few chi movements. It was the several people at the tribulation stage beside him who stood up. He calmed down in an instant, this was designed by the Red Girl Fairy. As long as he takes action, it means that he has committed public outrage. Snort. He stuffed his spiritual sword back into the scabbard and said, Red Boy Fairy, don't try to provoke me. The old man is 3 breaths, 3 hours, or 3 days and 3 nights, but have you tried it again? After saying that, he hugged the scabbard and began to close his eyes to rest, turning a deaf ear to everything that happened outside. Even though the sound of the Red Boy Fairy bombarding the formation in anger spread far away, it also attracted monks to come here in a steady stream. Among these people, Zuyun is also included. This kind of power must have been done during the tribulation period. But unfortunately, there is only one that is silent. If we fight during the tribulation period, the momentum will be far greater than this. If we bully the juniors during the tribulation period, there is no need to make such a fuss. Could it be that someone plotted against Xianxia and succeeded? Zuyun secretly guessed that if this was true, then his main crisis in the secret realm of immortality would be eliminated. As for the Demon Moon sect, even if they saw him, it would be fine. He needed to make sure. Seeing the many monks on the side rushing towards that direction with excitement on their faces, Zuyun was not willing to be left behind. Others are fast, but he walks slowly. This is also a strange thing, and it easily attracts the attention of others. It's better to just go with the flow for the time being. Zuyun saw clearly, and just like that, he flew all the way outside the crowd, and suddenly saw several people in the tribulation stage surrounding the 9 turns and 9 suns formation. The formation was a bit shaky, looking like it would be destroyed but not destroyed. Looking carefully, it turns out that there are several monks of different levels not far away, activating formations one after another and draining the spiritual power out of them. When the spiritual power is exhausted, this formation will be unable to support it. Zuyun's eyes flashed and he hid among the crowd. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1252. Xiu'er, you shouldn't have come here with me. Zuyun did not come alone. Xiu'er refused to leave and wanted to follow Zuyun. But this was the 9 revolutions and 9 suns formation, and he was afraid of encountering an accident and not being able to take care of him. I've agreed to go wherever you go, Xiu'er shook her head and said, otherwise, where would I go to find the immortal soul grass? Although Zuyun described the characteristics of the immortal soul grass to him, in this spiritual world, in this secret realm, Xiu had no idea of his own nascent soul stage's strength. Even if there is a natal magic weapon, the same is true. Mu Zhenjia knew Xiu's temperament and knew that he could not change her mind for a while. Otherwise, if she had been allowed to practice well in the mortal world and then come to the spiritual world, she would not have sneaked up. After pondering for a moment, he said, "How about you find a place to hide?" "Hide? How to hide? Where can I hide?" Xiu still refused, and even reached out to grab Zuyun's clothes. Zuyun had a headache, but suddenly his eyes lit up and he said, "How about this, I condense a clone and you follow me to find the immortal soul grass." This is the only way," Zuyun also said in a firm tone. "Look, there are so many tribulation stages in the sky. I think all the great powers within a few hundred miles are here, and my clone also has the divine transformation stage. Keep you safe. After obtaining the immortal soul grass, my clone will leave the secret realm with you and return to the immortal light sect." Seeing that Xiu was still hesitant, Zuyun struck while the iron was hot and condensed an incarnation of fire without any explanation. Fire is needed to make elixirs, and this incarnation couldn't be better. "You hurry up and leave. I'm afraid it's too late." When he was condensing the incarnation, Zuyun immediately felt a few rays of spiritual consciousness sweep over him. Perhaps because he saw that he was only in the spirit transformation stage, he didn't take it to heart, and the spiritual consciousness quickly disappeared. Oh well. Spiritual consciousness also swept over Xiu, and she also felt its endless terrifying power. Her heart trembled, and she did not dare to stay any longer, and followed the fire incarnation to escape from here. The other monks were not surprised, and they all secretly guessed that Zuyun was leaving a way out for himself. There are also some people in the transformation stage who have followed the same method and condensed their own clones. This is not a bad idea. With more people doing the same thing, Zuyun wouldn't be conspicuous, and without Xiu by his side, he could blend into the crowd and have a good fight. However, you still need to be careful. As the formation masters continued to pour out the spiritual power of the formation, the already shaky 9 turns and 9 suns formation slowly lost its brilliance and the formation walls began to become translucent. A huge tower facing the sky, looming, immediately attracted everyone's attention. Is that a tower or something? No matter what, as long as there is an immortal treasure and some immortal charm, it will be a great opportunity for us. Yes, with so many powerful people here, who dares to dream of seizing the treasure? There were various opinions, and their voices revealed excitement. Only Zuyun's face was gloomy. From the outline and color, he was extremely sure that this was the demon refining tower. But he didn't meet Mu Jianying, so he didn't know that Yao Fuzong was dead, so he thought it was Yao Fuzong who did it. I also inevitably thought about whether something happened to Yesuanhua in this 9 turns and 9 suns formation. Whether Yao Fuzong learned this formation from Yesuanhua or he brought Yesuanhua to the spiritual world to set up this formation, it was not a good thing for Zuyun. Fortunately, I had a sudden idea and let the fire incarnation take Xiu away. At least something happened to my body, and there are still 2 incarnations left. The Green Mountains are still there, so I don't have to worry about running out of firewood. Zuyun took a deep breath. The only thing he was worried about was that the Dewu glazed mirror was still on him. Boom. At this time, the 9 turns and 9 suns formation suddenly made a loud noise, and all the formation walls shattered like broken glass cups. The demon refining tower suddenly fell into sight. The black energy lingered around the tower, just like the first time he saw it back then. Just like those who were in the tribulation period, they also exclaimed, "This tower is absolutely extraordinary. Call out! Call out! Call out!" Several great tribulation masters arrived in an instant and disappeared from mid-air. When they reappeared, they were already around the demon refining tower, completely ignoring the formation masters who were still struggling to break the formation just now. My younger brother Zhu Feng is really good at playing. He must have hid in this tower and played hide and seek with my sister. The red girl fairy giggled, stepped forward, opened the bronze door of the demon refining tower, and stepped straight into it. The rest of the people in the tribulation stage were stunned. Damn it, this witch actually took the lead. For example, Fairy Xianxia and Lingzun Sword Master also quickly entered it. The great tribulation masters left one after another, which made the atmosphere in the venue relaxed a lot more than 10 Mahayana stagers also hesitated for a moment and got into the tower. They didn't feel anything related to immortals near the tower, so naturally they were unwilling to leave at this time. They thought that the mystery was in the tower, so they also chose to enter the tower. Then comes the integration stage, the virtual refining stage, and the divine transformation stage. Finally, there are the nascent soul stage, the Dan formation stage, and other small cultivators. People follow the crowd, and so do monks. In less than half an hour, there was still a lot of people, but after a while, everyone left. Only Zuyun was not in a hurry to go in. If Yao Fuzong's strength is suppressed in the mortal world, I won't be afraid. But he has returned to the spiritual world and is in the Mahayana stage. It will be difficult for me to deal with him. But master. He was still a little hesitant. He knew the power of the demon refining tower. It was once in Zhu Feng's hands, and it could exert such power. Now that it has returned to Yao Fuzong, it may be even stronger. He decided to observe it once. After walking around the demon refining tower, Zuyun was even more confused. He found that the demon refining tower was different. But it was not an improvement in momentum. On the contrary, there was a feeling that made him very familiar. Could it be that the evil thoughts disappeared, and the bird became a tower spirit, which also changed the nature of this tower? Zuyun murmured to himself. If so, maybe he really had a chance to find news about Yesuanhua. According to the character of the bird, it would definitely not follow Yao Fuzong to do evil, and according to Yao Fuzong's character, he would definitely kill the bird and then condense it into the tower spirit. But how difficult is it for this kind of demon refining tower built with the method of the fairy world to condense a tower spirit that fits the demon refining tower? Unable to fully control the demon refining tower, this would also reduce the threat to Zuyun. Plus, there are so many people in the tribulation period going in, so we can definitely give it a try. Zuyun's eyes condensed slightly, and he decided to enter the demon refining tower, but before that, he still needed to find some useful information in the wreckage of the formation. Among the many cultivators who went in, no one was more familiar with the space in the demon refining tower than him. After having a plan, Zuyun was no longer in a hurry. He quickly found the main formation eye according to the spiritual stone powder that was crushed into slag. But just after he went there, he was stunned for a moment. I'm afraid that the wood incarnation didn't expect that the formation would be destroyed by pouring out spiritual power, and it didn't explode as he guessed, thus burying the fragments of the isolated island. So, Zuyun saw the fragment that made him feel very familiar at the main formation eye at a glance. Why is there a fragment of the universe here? Zuyun's breathing became rapid, and he was a little unbelievable. This piece of the universe fragment left by the wood incarnation did not surprise Zuyun, but was only frightened. Because he felt a familiar breath from the fragment. In addition, there was also an inexplicable appearance beside the demon refining tower. Being suspicious by nature, he had to wonder if this was a conspiracy. Whether it is a conspiracy or not, the fragment of the universe cannot be given up. Put it away first and don't refine it for the time being. Zuyun was naturally reluctant to give up, but the fragment of the universe could not be stored in the immortal mansion or the world of the universe. This would cause him to merge on the spot. If it was really a conspiracy, it would be very likely to be succeeded by the person behind the scenes. After stuffing the fragment of the universe into his ring, Zuyun looked at the demon refining tower. The bronze door remained the same, and the carvings on it were extremely familiar. Although he had never understood it, he could still be sure that this was the demon refining tower that he had buried under the ground of Dongsheng realm as a novice. Huh. After taking a deep breath, Zuyun walked over, opened the bronze door, and stepped into it. As soon as his figure appeared, Zuyun found a cultivator not far away, who was also in the god transformation stage. Seeing someone appear, the man was delighted and rushed over, bowing and saying, "Why did you come in just now?" Zuyun frowned and said, "Do you know me?" "No, no," the male cultivator said with a stiff smile, "the space in this tower is very mysterious. I couldn't tell the direction after I came in. When I saw you just now, I felt that I had a connection with you. I wanted to travel with you so that I could take care of you." Zuyun didn't say anything, just stared at the man in the god transformation period. Perhaps because he felt that it was too abrupt, the man in the god transformation period said again, "Don't be offended, fellow Taoist. I am Zhuangbifan from the Jade Immortal section. This immortal tower is strange and unpredictable, and our realm is really neither good nor bad. We don't have the strength and courage of the great powers, nor are we like those small cultivators who just come to go through the motions." Zuyun now understood what the cultivator meant. What Zhuangbifan said was indeed reasonable. The man in the god transformation period did not have the strength to compete with the great powers for the immortal fate, but he had some self-preservation. Previously, he had seen many cultivators condense their own clones and headed for the distance, leaving a way out, so he naturally dared to fight here. "Brother Zhuang, do you mean to snatch the immortal fate?" Zuyun could feel that Zhuangbifan's aura was a little weak, and it was obvious that he also had a clone outside. "Who doesn't want to snatch the immortal fate?" Zhuangbifan said seriously, "but it's always difficult to accomplish it alone. Brother Dao is at a similar level to me, so it's best to go together. If there is an immortal fate, we will work together to snatch it. If we can't snatch it, at least there is still a clone outside, just treat it as a gamble." Zuyun raised his eyebrows, and with a plan in mind, he said, "I am Zuyun, meeting Brother Zhuang. It turns out to be Brother Zhu." Zhuangbifan smiled happily. The other party didn't say what sect he was from, so he was a casual cultivator. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1253. Zuyun doesn't know what the other person is thinking, but this is about using and using each other. In addition to who is more scheming, we also have to see who is the strongest. Zhuangbifan dared to take the initiative, so he obviously had some trump cards. But I, Zuyun, am not the same generation as Xiang. If you get along well, then that's it. But if you have evil thoughts in your heart, I, Zuyun, will send you to heaven in this demon refining tower. After entering the demon refining tower, Zuyun was not in a hurry, but took the initiative to follow Zhuangbifan in the tower. Zhuangbifan said, "Fellow Taoist Zhu, although we have all bet on our true nature, it took us many years to practice, so we still have to find the exit first, with the exit as the center, and then search everywhere. What do you think?" Zuyun smiled slightly and said, "Of course I heard from fellow Taoist Zhuang. Zhu just came out of seclusion in Tianweishan, and he is not very familiar with the secret realm of immortality." Zhuangbifan laughed and said, "Zhuang is not familiar with it either. It's just that these secret realms are all similar. What's more, this tower is a space in a secret realm. No matter how mysterious it is not mysterious. Fellow Taoist Zhuang is still well informed, I wish you a lesson." Zuyun and Zhuangbifan chatted one after another, walking in the same direction. From time to time, Zhuang Bifan would take out a compass from the ring. He could recognize that this compass was a spiritual weapon. Not only was the refining technique exquisite, but the materials used were also valuable. Fellow Daoist Zhuang, this spiritual weapon is pretty good, but can you find the exit? The reason why he asked this was that he could identify the exit, but Zhuang Bifan certainly couldn't. But at this time, their direction was also the exit. It's not about finding an exit, Zhuang Bifan said with a smile, this is not a treasure-hunting spiritual weapon, but a strange-looking spiritual weapon. Its purpose is to find the place where the spiritual energy is different. Of course, there are usually treasures, and this compass there is also a reaction. However, the spiritual needle above is shaking steadily at this time. Yi Zhuang guesses that it is most likely the exit or the entrance to the next level. There are actually some spiritual weapons, which is really good. It seems that Zhu is in the favor of fellow Taoist Zhuang. While Zhu Yun was amazed, he couldn't help but also praise him. I wish you Taoist friends who have devoted themselves to practicing hard have never left the mountain. Naturally, they don't know how big the spiritual world is and how many capable people there are. This spiritual weapon was made by Zhuang from the Balian sect. You know, the Balian sect has special weapons for immortals who have ascended the Tao. You can only imagine how strong their inheritance of the Tao is. 100 Refiners sect. Zhu Yun was surprised. He had originally planned to go to Balian sect to inquire about Ergu, but later an accident occurred in Juyu land. Yes, Balian sect, Zhuang Bifan was both impressed and dissatisfied, it's just that they are too dark. Do you know how Balian sect charges for refining weapons? Can you please tell me, fellow Taoist Zhuang? Whether it's refining a magic weapon or a spiritual weapon, they will charge double the materials. Do you think this is bad? Zhu Yun nodded naturally, and even said angrily, this is too dark. I used to help people refine weapons in the mortal world, but I only charged 1/10 of the corresponding value. I wish fellow Taoist also know how to refine weapons. Or are you a monk from the mortal world? Zhuang Bifan was stunned and asked immediately. Little did he know that this was Zhu Yun's deliberate trick to attract Zhuang Bifan's attention. Yes, I came from the eastern mortal realm. I also entered Taoism with weapons at first, but later I found that there was no future in refining weapons. Not to mention Fei Lingxi, it also took up a lot of practice time. Later, by chance, I found a skill after cultivating the Dharma. I also broke through the spirit transformation stage, so I have been in seclusion, and I just came out some time ago. Zhu Yun introduced himself and revealed a piece of information at the same time, that is, he was completely unfamiliar with the spiritual world. So that's it, Zhuang Bifan said without doubting that he was there. You know, these days, the spiritual world has been a troubled time. Especially Tianweishan. Yes, Zhu Yun sighed, when I first came here, I was shocked that the sky was floating in the sky, but when I came out, I found that the sky was falling to the ground. This spiritual world is really mysterious and mysterious. This is still a small matter, Zhuang Bifan said calmly. Tianweishan has fallen to the ground, but at least it has no impact. The one with the biggest impact is the Five Elements sect. Five Elements sect. Zhu Yun secretly kept an eye on it, but pretended to be suspicious on his face. Yes, the fall from the sky is directly related to the Five Elements sect being smashed to death by Senior Ye Yuan with a hammer. But who would have thought that the leader of the Five Elements sect also changed hands, and was replaced by a nascent soul with a single spiritual root of the fire element? The female nun is even more incredible. Oh? What do you think of this? Friend Zhu Dao, you don't know. The Five Elements sect was originally extremely domineering in the spiritual world, but after the death of the Five Elements Sanren, they have restrained themselves a lot. But who would have thought that after the sect leader changed hands, they would be more like ordinary weak sect leaders? It's just a matter of recuperation. Our Jade Immortal sect is only a third-rate force in Tianweishan, but at least there are Mahayana monks in our section. The two of them were walking and chatting. Zuyun also learned a lot about what happened during this period. He remembered everything in his heart, and through his own reaction, Zhuangbifan had no doubts. On the contrary, he felt that Zuyun was a capable person. Totally exploited people. Following the guidance of the compass, Zuyun and the two soon saw a huge mountain outside this space. It was the mountain where the exit and the entrance to the second floor coexisted. There is something mysterious in this mountain, Zhuangbifan said, staring at the compass, but he didn't notice the expression on Zuyun's face, showing surprise. Because the wooden incarnation had set up a formation to block the light door to the second floor, he could not fully see it. At the same time, he even discovered that there was a formation that he didn't recognize at all in front of the mountain. Fellow Daoist Chuang, how can we get there? Zuyun asked calmly. Although he didn't recognize the five-spirit formation, he quietly used the void-breaking spirit eye technique and recognized that the formation was arranged based on the five elements. It's over like this, how can it be over? Relying on the fact that he had a compass in his hand, Zhuangbifan did not panic and said, with this treasure, are you still worried about getting lost? But not long after, Zhuangbifan's face turned red. Both of them were trapped in the five elements trap spirit formation. Friend Zudeo, do you understand the formation? Zhuangbifan has the spiritual roots of water and fire, so the two light techniques that appeared in front of him were a blend of water and fire. The other path is naturally colorful and deals with Zuyun's five spiritual roots. However, Zhuangbifan didn't understand formations and couldn't detect such anomalies. But Zuyun looked solemn. Regarding Zhuangbifan's request for help, he thought for a moment and said, I understand a little, but this is a big formation in the Immortal Tower, but there is no guarantee of breaking it. Why don't you give it a try, fellow Taoist Zhuang, try your compass. Zhuangbifan smiled bitterly, the compass has lost its effectiveness. He spread his hands and motioned Zuyun to look, and saw that the compass above was spinning slowly, unable to guide the direction at all. Zuyun thought for a moment and then understood why. The most important word in the five elements is the word hung. This formation is arranged like this, so there is naturally no change in spiritual power. However, the compass is looking for spiritual power to surge, and it is trapped in the formation, so of course it will not have any effect. Is this five elements formation related to the five elements sect? The five elements sect also practices the five elements Chaos Sutra. If this formation is taught in the sutra, it is not impossible. But why does this formation appear in the demon refining tower? This made Zuyun puzzled, and he didn't dare to expose it. He is afraid of meeting Xianxia. No, I didn't meet Xianxia before entering the tower. Could it be that people from the five elements sect came and separated from Xianxia? He knew that Xianxia was in charge of the five elements sect and controlled almost all the monks. But he didn't know about the tribulation period within the five elements sect. Fellow Daoist Chuang, I can only try. Don't move. Zuyun thought for a moment and decided to try to get out of this formation. Dao to simplicity, no matter how complicated the five elements trapped spirit formation is, it is still based on the word trapped. After sleepiness, there is the word hung. While Zuyun used the shattering void spirit eye technique to look at the formation patterns one after another, he was also peeling off the cocoons, looking for the patterns of the formation, and thus finding the gate of the formation. The five elements trapped spirit array set up by the wood incarnation was only used to guide others. As Zuyun walked, he found that he had left the five elements trapped spirit array at some point and appeared on the top of this barren mountain. The light door to the second floor is also blocked, using the star transformation formation. Who is it? Including the 9 turns and 9 suns formation that we encountered first, this is already the third one. The matter was too mysterious and he couldn't connect it at all. If Tang Liwen had not passed the Immortal Ascension platform, he would still wonder if Tang Liwen was coming too. But why? He subconsciously looked down the mountain. When he saw the light door, he was stunned again, and his mind instantly became clear. Someone couldn't prevent others from entering the demon refining tower, so they blocked the light door on the second floor. As long as you don't look closely, you will definitely focus on the light door of the exit. The light door has no characteristics, and ordinary monks will definitely step into it. In this way, the monk will leave the demon refining tower. Even if he comes in again, it will take a lot of time. Friend Zhu, why did you stop? While Zhu Yun was deep in thought, Zhuang Bifan came over with a compass and said to Zhu Yun, the pointer has moved, look below. The direction of the finger was suddenly the light gate at the foot of the mountain. Zhu Yun also glanced at the compass, and was surprised to find that the pointer was shaking in two directions, directly ahead and below. This compass is indeed mysterious. Even if the light door to the second floor is covered by the star movement formation, it cannot escape the compass. That light door might go to the second floor. Let's go over and have a look. Zhu Yun's heart moved and he said. Hey, after hearing this, Zhuang Bifan suddenly remembered and said in surprise, friend Deist, have we come out of that formation? The two beams of light were gone, and he didn't even notice. Well, we came out. It seems that this formation is guiding us up the mountain. Zhu Yun said calmly. It seems that that is really the entrance to the second floor. Let's hurry up before anyone discovers this place. Zhuang Bifan had no doubt that he was there and rushed down the mountain. Zhu Yun followed closely, until he was in front of the light gate, and then he said, fellow Deist Zhuang, you go first, I will come right away. Zhuang Bifan laughed and said meaningfully, is it possible that fellow Taoist Zhu is afraid of an ambush so that Zhuang can get in first? Zhu Yun quickly shook his head and said, why do you say that, fellow Deist Zhuang? I'm afraid that fellow Deist Zhuang can't trust me and thinks I'm ambushing you on the second floor. These seemingly true words made Zhuang Bifan's eyes light up. After a few breaths, he laughed again and said, Zhuang made a mistake, I wish fellow Taoist forgive me. After that, he stepped into the light door and disappeared. Zhu Yun's expression turned cold, and he turned around and walked towards the real entrance. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1254. Returning to the top of the mountain, Zhu Yun looked back and took a deep look at the 5 elements soul trapping array. Only one of the 2 light pillars remained. The water and fire pillars had disappeared. What remained was naturally the 5 colored light pillars corresponding to his 5 spiritual roots. It's time to go in. Stepping into the light gate, he appeared on the second floor. When he saw the location of the light gate leading to the 3rd floor, he was stunned again. The light gate here is also blocked, but it is the 9 transformations and 9 suns array. Zhu Yun's eyes narrowed and he carefully entered the array. This array still has no attack attributes, and is still mainly based on concealment and shielding. This made Zhu Yun wonder about the motives of the person who set up the array. What is it for? The more unclear he was, the more careful he was. At this time, Zhuang Bifan was cursing outside the demon refining tower. He waited outside for a while but Zhu Yun didn't come out. How could he not know that he was fooled? Zhu, dare to deceive me. After cursing for a while, Zhuang Bifan's expression also became gloomy. He had already thought about how to deal with Zhu Yun later. However, he reflected that he was careless. He had a spiritual weapon that could detect abnormal fluctuations in spiritual power, so did Zhu Yun have any mysterious treasures? He could no longer be careless, and he had to be careful. A cultivator who could come all the way from the mortal world to the spiritual world, even if he was ignorant, could not be a naive person to reach this level. Zhuang Bifang glanced at Zhu Yun, but did not look down on himself. He took out his compass, held it tightly in his hand, opened the bronze door again, and stepped into it. After a little spiritual power was transferred, the compass needle pointed to the direction of the entrance mountain again. He accelerated and ran towards that place. This time, his luck was pretty good. He ran wildly and reached there in just 1 hour. But what he didn't expect was that this time, the entrance mountain was actually surrounded by many cultivators, including 2 great masters who had passed the tribulation. He knew that it was the Red Cloud Fairy and the spiritual sword master who had clashed with the Red Boy Fairy outside the demon refining tower when the formation was not broken. The 2 did not avoid the other cultivators, or did not take them seriously. They stood outside the 5 elements soul trapping array and talked freely, expressing their own opinions. I see another formation. I think it is inside the immortal tower. I am afraid it is the inheritance left by a formation fairy. Fairy Xianxia said. If so, then the inheritance here will be handed over to you. The next time you find a secret realm, give it to me. How about it? The spiritual master swordsman has a cultivation level above the spiritual sword. Even in a fight, he can only chop with a sword. In his opinion, everything other than the sword is unorthodox. Sword master, what if the next place we find is a sword fairy inheritance? Fairy Xianxia is somewhat interested in the formation. She looks at it in the long run. No matter how strong she is, she will be the lowest level of the golden immortal in the immortal realm. With fewer means, it is difficult for her to survive in the immortal realm. Besides, no matter how strong her magic is, can she be stronger than the immortal? Moreover, it is still unknown whether magic can be used as immortal magic in the immortal realm. On the contrary, formations are in line with the way of heaven, and I think it is the same in the immortal realm. Although she does not understand formations, she knows that the strength of formations is not only determined by the design of the formation itself, but also by the level of power it stimulates. The formation is driven by immortal power, so it is naturally an immortal formation. With my comprehension, if there is a sword immortal inheritance, I can apply the sword way to the sword way, which is not a loss. But I hope you will find the way of elixir or the way of weapon next time. Hearing this, Fairy Xianxia smiled slightly. She has known the spiritual venerable sword master for a long time, and this time they came in together. With 2 tribulation stage here, who else in this ascension secret realm can be their opponent? It was only when the wood incarnation arranged the 9 transformations and 9 suns formation that it triggered the resonance of the blood moon, creating a huge momentum and attracting all the cultivators within a radius of hundreds of miles. When the matter here is over, I think the other tribulation stages will also go their separate ways. At that time, there is no need to worry that they will join forces and pose a certain threat to the 2 of them. If it's the way of alchemy, give it to me. What do you think, Daozun? Whatever, said the meticulous face of the spiritual master Daoji calmly, without any expression. However, as long as I can use it, the next inheritance must be given to me. Of course. Fairy Xianxia nodded, looked at a Mahayana period beside her, and shouted in a low voice, break the formation well. Although you are the only one who broke the formation at that time, with the experience of breaking the formation before, this is not a difficult task for you, right? Senior Xianxia, please be patient. This formation is different from the formations in the outside world. However, with the previous experience, it is not difficult to drain the spiritual power of this formation. It's nothing more than finding the weakness of this formation. This Mahayana period thought that Fairy Xianxia was easy to talk to, but he didn't expect that although she was not as eccentric as the Red Boy Fairy, he was not as good as others in realm, so he could only follow her orders. However, he was also very excited when he heard her and the spiritual master Daoji's speculation. The inheritance of the formation fairy was a huge temptation for a cultivator like him who practiced the formation. Even though he was very dissatisfied, he was willing to break the formation. As long as there was a chance, he would definitely take the inheritance. Little did they know that this demon refining tower was just a place where Mu Huashan and Zhu Feng wanted to hide. Fairy Xianxia and the spiritual sword master did not enter the formation, so the others naturally did not dare to cross it. They did not see the mysterious spiritual root light column in the formation, and the Mahayana formation master was alone here, so it was not so easy to break it. No matter how bad the five elements trap spirit formation is, it is still an immortal formation from the immortal realm. It just uses mid-grade spiritual stones as the source of spiritual power. The attainments of the Mahayana formation Dao are extraordinary. Compared with the Dao contained in the immortal formation, it is not that easy. Zuyun walked into the formation and was guided to the top of the mountain without knowing it, let alone these people who were separated by the formation. If the method learned in the last realm of the five elements Chaos Sutra were so easy to break through, the five elements loose immortal wouldn't have to go to great lengths to plan it. During this Mahayana period, he underestimated the five elements trap spirit formation and also overestimated himself. Another 2 hours passed, and Fairy Xianxia became a little impatient. It hasn't been broken yet. She frowned slightly, but there was a coldness in her tone. If she didn't know how to fight, she would have gone into battle herself. Senior, wait a moment, it's almost here, it's almost here. This Mahayana period felt the murderous intention, and broke out in cold sweat unconsciously. Soon. The Lingzun swordsman raised his thick eyebrows, and suddenly there was a movement in his hand. Brush. A wave of sword energy circulated and then disappeared after a moment. In the horror of all the monks, the Mahayana period was divided into two halves with a knife. Escape. A black shadow jumped out from the half-cleft of the body. Fairy Xianxia sneered, waved her jade hand gently, and heard a hiss, and a spiritual fire suddenly jumped out. Ah! A miserable sound came, and the soul of this Mahayana stage was burned to pieces in an instant. Wasted so much of our time. The Lingzun swordsman turned around and glanced past. Wherever he looked, everyone was trembling with fear. These monks had seen the Lingzun swordsman suffer from the Red Boy Fairy, but they forgot that they and others were far inferior. Swordsman, what do you think? Fairy Xianxia asked. What else can I do if I can't break the formation? Of course I'll chop it with one knife. The spirit master swordsman didn't care. He didn't understand the formation, but he could feel the formation and he could open it with his spirit sword. It is easy to forcefully break the formation, but the difficulty is that if we do this and make the formation immortal angry, we will not be qualified to accept the inheritance, and our trip will be in vain. What do you say? The light of the sword flashed in the hand of the Lingzun swordsman, and he suddenly held a ghost-headed sword. The hilt of the knife was engraved with two identical beads, which looked like the eyes of an evil spirit crawling out of hell, emitting a cold light that was daunting. If I want to break this formation, I can break it, but the question is whether there is a remnant soul or a ray of consciousness of the formation immortal in this fairy tower. Immortal fate is rare, and it is impossible for the inheritance to be lost due to our own reasons. You're right, the spirit master swordsman put away his sword, and the atmosphere around him calmed down. A Mahayana disciple died immediately. Plus that weird spirit sword, how could they not be afraid? The Lingzun swordsman understood that this was the inheritance that Fairy Xianxia wanted to get. If he didn't help him, then Fairy Xianxia wouldn't help him if there was another inheritance. If someone comes to fight for it, then it will be difficult for him to deal with it. At this time, Zhuangbifan realized that his opportunity had come. He rushed forward, and when he caught their attention, he fell to his knees with a plop. Senior, I have an idea. In front of the tribulation stage, he did not dare to call himself a junior even in the god transformation stage. Fairy Xianxia's beautiful eyes narrowed, and she said disdainfully, "You are in the stage of becoming a god, what else can you do?" Zhuangbifan immediately said, "I'll be honest with you two seniors, little man." He is also a thoughtful person. After saying a few words, he raised his head and looked around. The Lingzun sword master naturally understood, laughed, drew out the sword again, and slashed it down in the air. Clang! The blade fell directly on Zhuangbifan's side, and a murderous aura spread out in all directions. Countless monks were knocked over, and those with low levels were directly annihilated by the saber aura. But the surviving monks did not dare to stay any longer and fled one after another. They didn't even dare to bear grudge against Lingzun's swordsman, but instead bore their hatred on Zhuangbifan. There is no one here, so you can say it. However, I have something ugly to say. If you lie to me, I will take off your clothes, shave all your hair, and feed you. Fairy Xianxia didn't speak, but her look had the same meaning. I don't dare, Zhuangbifan said quickly. Back to Senior, there is a spiritual weapon in the villain's hand. Through the fluctuation of spiritual power that is different from the general environment, Senior can pass through this formation and reach the top of the mountain. Oh! Fairy Xianxia stretched out her hand. Then please present this spiritual weapon. Zhuangbifan had known that these two people would be like this, so he was well prepared and said bluntly, to be honest, Senior, this junior passed through this formation a few hours ago and knows how to enter and exit the formation. As soon as these words came out, Fairy Xianxia and Lord Ling changed their minds. Looking at each other, Fairy Xianxia stretched out her hand and grabbed Zhuangbifan from the air. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1255. Bring your spiritual weapon to me and show it to me. Lingzun's swordsman held the sword and stretched out his hand towards Zhuangbifan. Yes, Senior. Zhuangbifan took out the compass without any hesitation. Sure enough, the hands are moving. Fairy Xianxia just glanced at it and found that although the pointer on the compass was shaking around, it was always changing between two positions. She raised her head and asked, you said you walked through the formation before, so why did it happen again, appear here? Zhuangbifan did not dare to hide anything and said, Senior, the villain did indeed enter the formation, and followed the guidance of the pointer to find a light door. But he never thought that the light door was the exit. The person appeared outside the immortal tower through the light gate, then re-entered the tower, and then arrived here. Exit. Since it's the exit, why did you come here again? Fairy Xianxia spoke suddenly. But Zhuangbifan had already thought of his words and said, Senior, did you see anyone coming out when you were breaking the formation here? What's the meaning? The villain was walking with someone, and was deceived by that person, saying that he would go with the villain after entering the light gate. But he never thought that the villain stepped into the light gate first and left the fairy tower, and waited for a long time without waiting for him. Come out. If the senior doesn't see that person coming out, it means that he stayed in the formation and found a way to enter the lower level of the immortal tower. Zhuangbifan's words made Fairy Xianxia and Lingzun's swordsman look at each other involuntarily. There are quirks, but not implausible. The spirit master swordsman sneered and asked, who is the person traveling with you? Zhuangbifan said, Senior, that person calls himself Zhu Minjian. He is a villain who met by chance in the tower. I can't say. He hesitated to speak, but both of the two tribulation stages had the answer in their hearts. It's impossible to say, that person knows the situation in the tower. If this is the case, then Zhuangbifan's previous words will make sense. Very good, the Lingzun sword master handed the compass to Fairy Xianxia, then picked up the spirit sword and said, then you will lead the way. Since you have walked through this formation, I want to remember the route out of the formation. Just follow the pointer and you can find the light gate. I'll wait near the light gate, maybe I can find the secret. Zhuangbifan was very sure that in the 5 elements trap spirit formation, except for the 2 mysterious light pillars, there was nothing worth taking a second look at. You lead the way. Fairy Xianxia threw the compass back to Zhuangbifan and ordered. Yes, Senior. A group of 3 people plunged into the 5 elements trap spirit formation. But this time, 3 pillars of light appeared, and Zhuangbifan couldn't help but be shocked. The twin pillars of water and fire were still the same, but the other 2 pillars of light, one was completely golden, and the other was full of green light. Completely different from what I saw before. What's this? Fairy Chixia stared at the light beam, and then said, Master Deo, do you feel that you are being stared at by something? It's not like he was targeted. Lingzun's swordsman shook his head and said calmly, even if he was, I will chop him with one knife. They were preconceived and thought that even if there was someone, it was Zuyun's fault. Leaving aside whether it was man-made or not, Fairy Chixia turned to look at Zhuangbifan and asked, who are you? Zhuangbifan was stunned and said quickly, the villain has the dual spiritual roots of water and fire. That's it. Fairy Chixia smiled delicately, pointed at the golden beam of light and said, Master Deo, I understand one thing, you have a single spiritual root of the gold system. The spirit master swordsman also looked over, pointed at the green light beam and said, then does this represent you who have a single wood spirit root? That's right, Fairy Chixia said with a smile, this formation seems to be quite powerful, but it's a pity that it's not that interesting. During their tribulation period, they had a strong sense of crisis. Although this situation was mysterious, they did not feel it at all. Only in this way could they talk and laugh. But every word that fell in Zhuangbifan's ears made him involuntarily think of the scene when he and Zuyun were in fashion together. It seems to be a 5-color light pillar, sometimes intertwined together, showing off gray. Boy, when you came in with Zuyun, did you see the color of his light beam? Just as he was thinking about it, the voice of Fairy Chixia came. The villain didn't notice it at the time, it seemed to be 5 colors. Zhuangbifan quickly answered, but he still couldn't figure it out. If it was 5 colors, would it be 5 spiritual roots? But aren't those with 5 spiritual roots all members of the 5 elements sect? Sure enough, as soon as these words came out, the expressions of Fairy Chixia and Lingzun's sword master changed. 5 spiritual roots. Fairy Chixia whispered and looked at the Lingzun swordsman. Unconsciously, their steps also slowed down a lot. The 5 colors can only be the 5 spiritual roots. Are they from the 5 elements sect? Is it possible that someone from the 5 elements sect stayed in the secret realm of Xianxia? In an instant, because of the relationship between the 5 spiritual roots, things became a little confusing, making them unable to figure out the key. The secret realm of Xianxia is opened once every 1,000 years. There are also some people who choose not to leave the secret realm but stay here. But the second time it was opened, no one ever said they would see them. Furthermore, those who can live for 1,000 years are at least above nascent soul. But generally speaking, nascent soul will not stay. If they want to break through the realm, they must break through the heavenly tribulation in the outside world. The rumors that the secret realm of Xianxia is in the spirit world comes from outside the world. They have always assumed that it is not within the scope of heaven, so there is no possibility of heavenly calamity. This also makes it impossible for Yuanying period to actively stay in it. As for the monks who are above the gods, since the heavenly tribulation, they have relied more on comprehending the great Dao and cultivating breakthroughs. If they stay in one place, without experience, it will be more difficult. Therefore, no one would stay in the immortal secret realm for the sake of cultivation. No one knows what will become of this place after it is closed for thousands of years. Can the monks survive? It's possible, Lingzun swordsman said, the 5 elements sect's cultivation path is different from ours. It is said that they practice the immortal method created by the immortal, and they can practice it all the way to ascension. If this tower can protect people completely, it makes sense. And even if the people he met were not people who stayed in the secret realm, they might be disciples of the 5 elements sect who came to look for their predecessors. Fairy Xianxia agreed with this statement and asked Zhuangbifan, what did that person say? Zhuangbifan had already lost his bearings. No matter from every aspect, this was beyond his expectation. He could only tell Zuyun what he said to him in detail. By the time they finished speaking, they were already standing at the light gate at the foot of the mountain. When did we go into battle and we didn't even notice? Fairy Xianxia was analyzing the information in Zhuangbifan's words. She suddenly looked back and saw that the beam of light had disappeared at some point. This shows that they left the 5 elements trap spirit array. With this compass as a guide, it's not surprising to go out into the battle. Lingzun swordsman didn't take it to heart. He pointed at the compass, but found that the shaking at this time seemed a little different from before entering the battle. Huh. He frowned and said to Fairy Xianxia, look quickly, is this pointer still pointing to the top of the mountain? Fairy Xianxia quickly looked around and stared for a long time before looking at Zhuangbifan and said, did you make such a discovery before you came out of the light door? The villain was bewitched by Zuyun and didn't pay attention. Seeing that there was only this light door nearby, he thought it was the entrance to the next level. Fairy Xianxia pondered for a moment, and then looked around again. There is really only this dazzling light door in all directions. Let alone Zhuangbifan, even if he sees it with his own eyes, he will ignore other information and think that this is the entrance to the next level. And as long as you enter the light gate, you are leaving the demon refining tower. I kind of get it. Fairy Xianxia suddenly spoke to the Lingzun swordsman with a sudden smile. Oh. Someone wants to delay time. Perhaps, this immortal tower has something to do with the 5 elements sect, but I don't know what the relationship is. Anyway, it can't be the inheritance of the immortal. Fairy Xianxia's words are extremely certain. But this time the spirit master swordsman refused and said, we have agreed, this place belongs to you, and the next place belongs to me. We finally got here, and we almost had a fight with the red boy fairy outside. The old witch had a fight, but you told me that this is not the place. Fairy Xianxia chuckled and said, why are you so anxious? With this compass in hand, are we still afraid of not being able to find the immortal inheritance? As soon as these words came out, Zhuangbifan's expression changed drastically, and he ducked into the light door. But he never thought that the master of the sword would react faster, and the light of the sword had already flashed before the sword came out of its sheath. Call out! Zhuangbifan was immediately cut in half. His incarnation is not here, and he cannot leave his body. Of course, even if you get out of your body, you will definitely die. Fairy Xianxia had a smile on her face, as if she hadn't seen it, and said, look at the pointer, it seems to be pointing to this light door, but it is still pointing in another direction, which must be the entrance. Then Zuyun should have entered the entrance as well. Don't worry, Lord Sword, even if it's not an immortal inheritance, it's not a bad thing as long as you find some useful rare treasures. What do you think? In our realm, what other rare treasures can penetrate our eyes? Don't tell me, there are immortal weapons here. The spiritual master swordsman shook his head. No, 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 Fairy Xianxia pointed to the top of the mountain and said, if someone from the 5 elements sect had an immortal weapon, how could he leave it for us to find in the secret realm of ascension? But if it wasn't an immortal weapon, what confidence would he have left? In the secret realm of Xianxia. You mean, the legendary pseudo-immortal weapon? The eyes of the spirit master swordsman suddenly lit up. Pseudo-immortal weapons are between fairy weapons and spiritual weapons. The difference is that pseudo-immortal weapons are still driven by spiritual power. But the spiritual world has always said that if a fake fairy weapon can be bathed in fairy light, it may become a fairy weapon. Why is the secret realm of Xianxia called the mysterious land of Xianxia? Isn't it because of the inheritance of immortals? Come to think of it, that person from the 5 elements sect had this idea in mind, to stay here not to cultivate immortality, but to wait for the immortal light. With a flash of light in their eyes, they ran towards the top of the mountain again. At the same time, they kept staring at the compass needle and found subtle changes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1256. The pointer was shaking, but the two were powerful men in the tribulation period after all, and they quickly discovered the pattern. As they got closer and closer to the top of the mountain, the changes in the pointer became more and more obvious. It seems that there are still spiritual energy fluctuations on the top of this mountain, and it is most likely a light door leading to the second level. The Lingzun swordsman's eyes were shining brightly, and his face was a little serious. If it is really related to the Five Elements sect, that is obviously not a good thing. Indeed, Fairy Xianxia looked as usual and said with a smile, maybe Zhuangbifan was preconceived and was attracted by the light door at the exit, so he did not notice the subtle changes in the spiritual weapon. But it is not completely sure. Go to the next step. The entrance to the lair is here. The two stood at the top of the mountain, still staring at the pointer on the compass. It's not that they haven't used their souls to explore, but this is a space created by the method of refining weapons. The light gate is extremely stable. If it weren't for this compass spiritual weapon, I'm afraid that as Mujiajia guessed, he would stay in this demon refining place forever. In the tower. When we walked to this mountain, we passed several formations. I guess the light gate is also hidden in the formations. Should we break it open with force, or should we use this compass as a guide to find a way out after entering the formation? The Spirit Master Swordsman is more concerned about this. It's better to go in and take a look first. Fairy Xianxia thought for a moment, and then followed the position where the pointer occasionally wandered. After determining the direction, she stepped into the star-shifting formation. The dark void, dotted with stars, shocked them greatly. Is this a formation? The Spirit Master Swordsman was also shocked. He had thought that it would be like the Five Elements Trap Spirit formation. Although it was mysterious, his sword could break through all kinds of magic. He could just break through a large formation. But this great formation made it impossible for him to take action. The land is empty. Even if he cuts it with one sword, where can he go? Fairy Xianxia is not much better. This is simply unbelievable. Who else in the spiritual world can set up such a large formation? If it was really the Five Elements sect, it would be too terrifying. Don't rush, lest you get stuck here. The Lingzun swordsman calmed down and saw the compass in Fairy Xianxia's hand. The pointer kept spinning and it was impossible to determine the direction. All the stars are transformed from middle-grade spiritual stones, and the spiritual power provided to the formation is almost the same. This is naturally no guide. Lingzun swordsman was unable to do so, so he and Fairy Xianxia slowly circulated their spiritual power and explored in one direction. While they were trapped in the formation, many tribulation transcending monks gradually came here. Among them, naturally include the people who are leading the tribulation period brought by Xianxia and others, as well as the rest of the casual cultivators who are leading the tribulation stage. There are also Mahayana monks and other monks. The entire first floor of the demon refining tower is vast and almost the same wasteland. Only this place is different, which makes them feel that if there is an immortal inheritance, it must be here. Some of these people passed through the light gate, left the demon refining tower and came back again, and some of them went to other places in the ascending immortal secret realm after leaving. Less than 50% of the people stayed. But during the tribulation period, no one chose to leave. They had cooperated outside the 9 transformations and 9 suns formation. After discussing for a while, they searched repeatedly on the top of the mountain and were trapped in the star transformation formation without any surprise. At the same time, Mu Jiahua and Zhu Feng hid on the ninth floor, sitting opposite each other in silence. Zhu Yun also reached the 8th floor and stood outside the light door, feeling extremely uneasy. Let's go to the 9th floor to see what the truth is. Starting from the 2nd level, 9 simple 9-turn 9-yang formations were set up on the light gates of the 1st level. Who is it? Zhu Yun touched his chest, where the Diwu glazed mirror was tightly protecting his chest. He took a long breath, and a look of determination flashed in his eyes. Maybe this 9th level was Yao Fuzong, maybe it was Yesuanhua. But no matter what, he never thought that it was his incarnation of Mu and Zhu Feng. Why is it you? Zhu Yun was stunned, and Zhu Feng was also stunned. Then Qin Tianji's calculations are really accurate. Mu Jiahua smiled, stood up and floated towards Zhu Yun, immediately blending into his body. Memories appeared in Zhu Yun's mind like curtains of light. Half an hour later, Zhu Yun already understood the cause and effect of what happened. He opened his eyes and said, Zhu Feng, you are really not afraid of death. Are you the one who came to this place in the spiritual world? There was blame in his tone, but also a kind of care. Brother, I just want to do my best to help you. However, refining the demon refining tower was really an accident. Zhu Yun smiled and said loudly, Aniao, long time no see, I didn't expect you to wake up. At the altar, Aniao's body emerged from the pool. It happened by chance, but it is still a little weak and cannot fully master the demon refining tower. Otherwise, there would be no need for Zhu Feng to use the demon devouring technique again. Zhu Yun's face darkened and he said, is Yao Fuzong really dead? Dead, really dead? Aniao's tone was also quite lonely. After all, he was once his master. No matter how he used him, they had lived together for thousands of years. Brother, Zhu Feng said, Yao Fuzong's body is over there. Do you want to go and take a look? Well. Zhu Yun sighed. It is true that he knew that Zhao Kamang had died a long time ago and it had ended the moment Yao Fuzong took the body. But when he saw the shriveled corpse, he felt mixed emotions in his heart. Old Zhao, old Zhao. He had a lot of words to say, but he couldn't say a word. He knew better than anyone that there were countless Zhao Kamangs who died in the pursuit of the immortal path. There were even more cultivators who would have a hard time walking after reaching the immortal world, and might die in the immortal world. This was the cruelty of the immortal world, and the biggest difference from mortals. Such a long lifespan could be said to be wonderful, but it was not as stable as 100 years of mortals. Leave this body to me. Zhu Yun decided to bury Lao Zhao in the great universe world and put the body directly into it. Zhu Feng, do you have any plans? Thinking about the situation outside, Zhu Yun asked immediately. Although so many formations were laid, the wooden incarnation was only to delay time. This was a temporary solution, and sooner or later a cultivator would find the 9th floor. It was not that Zhu Feng could not know about the great universe world. But after all, Zhu Feng was only in the nascent soul stage, and it was not good for him to know it too early. Brother, Zhu Feng said with a gleam in his eyes, I still have a backup plan. If it really doesn't work, Aniao and I will do our best to send you out. What about you and Aniao? Zhu Yun glanced at him lightly, and told Aniao not to speak and listen to Zhu Feng's meaning. I've thought about it, Zhu Feng said, after we are exhausted, the tower spirit will fall into a deep sleep again, and I think those cultivators who come in will not find his existence. And I'm just a Yuanying cultivator, who will care? Yes, no one will care, Zhu Yun said unhappily, no one will care about your life or death. Since you have come to the spirit world, I can't just leave you dead. It is simple to enter the world of the universe, but there will definitely be an impact. Although Zhu Yun cannot prove it, he has such a guess. The rules of the world of the universe and the world of Huangming Xing are different. If a cultivator is contaminated with some cause and effect, it may be detrimental to his cultivation. This is also the reason why Zuyun does not want to accept other cultivators into it, including Zhu Feng. As for the fragments of the isolated island of the wood incarnation, since they have not been completely integrated with the great universe world, the impact may be smaller. Zhu Feng smiled bitterly and said, "Now they must have entered the tower. If they find the light gate, we are like turtles in a jar. There is no other way." Zuyun patted Zhu Feng on the shoulder and said, "It's not that there is no way, but my method is not good for your immortal path. In the long run, it may cut off your immortal path in this world. So, I suggest you work together with a Niao and let him send you away directly. No, then you will die if you stay here." Zuyun smiled slightly and raised his eyebrows. "I won't die." "Really?" Zhu Feng couldn't help but be suspicious. "Don't you believe in my brother's ability? The question now is whether you can work together with a Niao to send you out." He was not aimless. After the great universe world and the great universe immortal palace were separated, he could enter it at any time without leaving any traces. But where you enter the great universe world, you will be there when you come out. That is to say, he entered from the 9th floor of the demon refining tower, and he would leave the great universe world on the 9th floor of the demon refining tower. Zhu Feng knew that he could not beat Zuyun, so he had to say, "What if I go out?" Zuyun smiled and said, "When you go out, go wherever it is safe. It is better to leave the Ascension secret realm, go south along the sea route, and find a place called Xianxia section." "What about the demon refining tower?" Zhu Feng was shocked. "If it is the demon refining tower, I will bring it back for you." Zuyun knew that although this was a bit inappropriate, it was the only way, because what he was most uncertain about was whether there would be any cultivators who had passed the tribulation left here when he came out of the great universe world. Zhu Feng was silent for a moment, and then he had to agree to discuss with the Niao how to leave the demon refining tower. Zuyun was silent and waited quietly. As long as Zhu Feng left, he would immediately enter the great universe world. But if those people came to the 9th floor in advance, he had no choice but to take Zhu Feng away. With his current strength, he is unable to deal with cultivators above the refinement void realm. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1257. When it comes to talent for cultivating immortals, Zhu Feng is even better than Zuyun. Within a moment, he came up with a way, and after discussing with Zuyun, he decided to try to leave the demon refining tower directly from the 9th floor. Zuyun raised his hands in approval, and his only worry was whether he could succeed. A Niao said, "Zuyun, you don't need to worry. No matter whether it succeeds or not, I will fall into a deep sleep and restore the power of the demon soul. But even if it fails, Zhu Feng will just stay in the tower at most. Relatively speaking, there is no risk involved and you can give it a try." As for Zuyun, he couldn't help at all. There was no power provided by the 12 demon clans and statues in the tower, and Zuyun had no way to help. However, he still left some spiritual weapons that he could not use, as well as some spiritual stones, to make it easier for him to walk in the spiritual world. Nothing happened, and Zhu Feng left the demon refining tower smoothly. Seeing that a Niao's golden shadow faded and he fell into a deep sleep again, Zuyun took out the fragment of the universe from the ring. "It just so happens that I can take advantage of this moment to fuse the fragments and I can enter it. I'll come out and have a look after the storm has passed." Holding the fragment, Zuyun moved towards the world of Dazhu with a thought in his mind. Boom! The roar sounded in Zuyun's head, and when he opened his eyes, he was horrified to find that he was actually in the void. This is the real void. You can see stars in the star-moving formation, but you can't see anything in this void. Apart from the feet, there are two worlds, one big and one small, colliding away. If you look carefully, you can see a golden light connecting the two worlds. The world of the universe and the isolated island. Integrating the wood incarnation, Zuyun knew that the biggest feature of the Dazhu island was the blue sea. The waves were shaken and made extremely turbulent. The waves were raging, but no sound could be heard from the island. He seemed to be looking down from high in the sky. This kind of scene was something he had never seen before. Boom! 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 The momentum was huge, and as the two worlds got closer and closer, Zuyun's heart was also surging with it. Finally! Bang! There was a sound like the earth was shattering, and the two worlds collided completely. This was beyond Zuyun's expectation. I thought that the Dazhu island and the Dazhu world would be spliced together like a puzzle, but I never thought that just when they were about to collide, the Dazhu island suddenly flew a little higher, and finally hit it hard. In the world lake of the universe world, the lake water and sea water merged together, and a small island appeared out of thin air in the world lake. The size became smaller, but the water became more. It immediately overflowed and seemed to have started a flood. Under the foot of World Mountain, it quickly turned into a land of marsh. Zuyun watched helplessly as those monsters were frightened by the flood and ran away. He even saw the embarrassed figures of Little Brown, Little Gray and 3 dogs running towards the World Tree to seek shelter. World Tree also seemed to be a little panicked. He didn't know why this change occurred. The water was so powerful that the entire World Tree was gradually submerged. Fortunately, he was able to use the origin of the universe to stand firmly in the water. Fortunately, the water stopped rising and only reached the roots of his tree. But World Mountain was completely flooded. Zuyun thought anxiously so that he could appease those monsters, which were also the source of the original power of the universe. But then he realized that he couldn't control his body at all. He couldn't help but worry. Could it be that his soul just left the body? Wood Avatar has experienced this before, he has to worry. But there was nothing he could do to worry anymore. Zuyun just floated above the great universe world and stayed there for 7 days, watching the flood gradually flow into the distance until the water level of the world lake slowly receded. The newly revealed ground was in a mess, and many naturally growing weeds or spiritual grasses had been washed away. But more spiritual grasses only staggered here and there, and gradually straightened up as the water level receded. The monsters were all scattered, and they returned here based on their memories. After all, they had lived here for a long time, and even though they had been like puppets, their body's instinct could make them remember that this was their home. Zuyun looked into the world lake again. I saw that the small island became an island in the lake, but it also shrank a lot, but there was no sense of disobedience. It seemed that it was one and natural. In an instant, Zuyun understood, this island was originally an island in the lake. Just when he suddenly realized it, a golden light struck from a distance. Looking at the familiar fairy light, Zuyun knew that it was the formation Immortal coming. Array Immortal, Array Immortal. He was overjoyed. After all, he was the original weapon Immortal of the great universe. Maybe he could find a way to get him down. But after shouting a few words, he immediately stopped. Because he discovered that the sound could only be transmitted into his mind, but it could not be transmitted through the void at all. Zuyun watched helplessly as the golden ball of the formation Immortal flew towards the world tree. After turning into a human form, he stayed under the world tree for 7 days and 7 nights, and finally merged into the platform of the isolated island. The platform suddenly glowed brightly. After reaching the extreme level, it slowly receded and finally returned to its original state, as if it had never appeared before. Strange, strange. Zuyun also watched it for 7 days, and his mood had already calmed down. He had been in the immortal mansion and was trapped in the heavenly book space by the ancestor of the Lin family for who knows how long. These few days will not have any impact on him at all. The only thing that worried him was that his body would be left in the tower and then discovered by those monks who were looking for treasure. At this time, those who were in the tribulation period gathered together in the Xianxia formation. The seemingly boundless void is not really boundless after all. The space of the formation is limited, it is nothing more than enlarging the space through the mystery of the formation. But after so long, no matter how big the space is, it can't stop these powerful people from discovering each other. Moreover, the void only looks endless, but it will actually give them some wrong judgments. It is obviously going around in circles, but it makes them think they are always moving forward. Only you will believe in the spiritual tools of these incarnation monks. In my opinion, just burn them with fire. Red Boy Fairy giggled, her eyes full of contempt. The spiritual honored swordsman sneered, saying, "What a joke. Whether a spiritual weapon is useful or not depends on who holds it. If it weren't for this spiritual weapon, we wouldn't have arrived several days earlier than you. They have been sitting here for several days, and they are familiar with each other's experiences these days." Red Boy Fairy didn't care at all, saying, "It's better to arrive at the right time than to arrive early. You arrived early and have this excellent magic weapon, but you still met us." She emphasized the word excellent and clearly meant to mock. "Heh," the spiritual honored swordsman pulled out his spiritual sword with a swish, pointed at the Red Boy Fairy and said, "Do you think I dare not take action here?" Unlike the cooperation before, the spiritual honored swordsman was not worried that the other tribulation stage would take action. Everyone, seeing the situation tense, a female cultivator who was also dressed in fiery red stood up. "In my opinion, this formation is not unbreakable, but how to break it?" The spiritual master swordsman turned his head and looked over, and couldn't help but coldly shouted, "A mere refining void ant is qualified to speak at this time." He, the Red Boy Fairy laughed, "What's your name, can you tell me?" The female cultivator smiled faintly, "Sister, my name is Xianxia." The Red Boy Fairy frowned and smiled more, "You are also wearing red clothes, so you must be destined to be with me. Do you want to practice with me and learn the same fire fairy method as your sister?" Xianxia readily agreed, and then said, "But before that, my sister has one more thing to do." "Just do it, sister, sister will support you." The Red Boy Fairy thought that Xianxia had a way to break the formation, just like the Zufeng she had seen before. It's a pity that she was deceived by Zufeng. Having suffered a loss once, she decided to lock a breath on Xianxia. But her soul did not move, but she saw Xianxia's face suddenly turned cold, and she pursed her lips towards the spiritual master swordsman and said, "Slap! Slap!" All the Tribulation Crossing cultivators were stunned, but they saw 3 Tribulation Crossing cultivators suddenly appear not far behind Xianxia. The old man with the haggard face seemed to be dying at any time. The Tribulation Crossing cultivators have to endure the lifespan. How terrifying is this? Snap! 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 Before they could react, 3 slaps sounded in succession. When everyone heard the sound, they saw that the spiritual master swordsman had a sore on his right face, blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth, and the spiritual sword in his hand, which was regarded as his life, was also broken from the middle. What happened? All their attention was on Xianxia before, either curious or gloating. But they never expected that the spiritual master swordsman was injured. This is a sword cultivator who is almost invincible in the same realm, comparable to the existence of sword cultivators, and he is also a person who has entered the Dao through practicing swordsmanship and is domineering. At this time, another old voice came, with a hint of threat. "Dare to disrespect the leader of the 5 Elements sect, next time, I will take your life." The leader of the 5 Elements sect? In an instant, all the cultivators remembered the rumors they had heard before, a rumor that was regarded as a joke. The leader of the 5 Elements sect was actually inherited by a female cultivator with a single fire spiritual root. And obviously, they are the joke now. The female cultivator of Xianxia has 3 Tribulation Crossing stage backing her up. Who dares to move? No wonder he dared to say the word slap in the mouth. It must be said that Xianxia had not spoken before, because he had seen through the situation here and knew that these tribulation crossing cultivators would not unite. Even if the spiritual honored swordsman had an agreement with the fairy Xianxia, it was not necessarily a life and death relationship. In this case, he stood up for the spiritual honored swordsman. Xianxia's deep scheming is like this. So Sister Zhong is the leader of the 5 elements section. I'm really surprised. Red Boy Fairy's tone also changed. Although she still called her sister, she was much closer, with a kind of intentional flattery. No matter how strong she couldn't be stronger than the 3 tribulation stage. Xianxia smiled. Sister, you are also dressed in red. You have a good relationship with me. And the fire system formula you practice must have the same origin. Why don't you come over here and get closer? How about it? She waved to Red Boy Fairy. Red Boy Fairy's face froze, but she heard Xianxia say again, Sister, I'm very interested in the dual cultivation you mentioned before. We are both women, and I think the dual cultivation method has a different flavor. Seeing the 3 tribulation stage behind Xianxia staring at her, Red Boy Fairy suddenly figured it out. Instead of being alone and making enemies with those tribulation stage, it's better to stand in the same camp with Xianxia. At least, for now, her side is the strongest. And it seems that Xianxia has no ill will towards her. Okay, then when you're practicing dual cultivation, you can be more considerate to your sister. Red Boy Fairy quietly floated over and stood beside Xianxia. Even the monks secretly cursed her for being shameless. No wonder birds of a feather flock together. While secretly despising her in her heart, Xianxia spoke. I seem to have seen this before. Her expression was normal, and her casual words caused an uproar. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1258. None of them knew this formation, so why did Xianxia only know it during the void refining period? Furthermore, everyone in the spirit world has learned that the leader of the 5 elements sect has changed hands, but that only happened not long ago. Is it possible that Xianxia has extraordinary means? Originally, they didn't believe it, but after seeing the 3 people respectfully treating Xianxia during the tribulation period, they had no choice but to believe it. Besides, judging from Xianxia's tone, what she said was true. The star movement formation was created by Tang Liwen. Even though Zuyun's wooden incarnation has some innovations, the things they actually have in common are exactly the same, endless void and thousands of stars. She was once the daughter of the leader of the Fire Dragon section. She had also been to the valley where Tang Liwen was located, and she would definitely pass through the star movement formation. In fact, she had suspected it for a long time, but after all, she was still a little weak and did not dare to make a rash conclusion. Now that she saw that she was trapped in it even during the tribulation period, she felt certain in her heart. She was even more certain that this formation might have been set up by Zuyun. Under the ascension platform, she saw Tang Liwen flying away with her own eyes. This scene made her extremely unwilling. Why was it her and not me? Because of this, the immortal light after the Xianxian platform was broken merged with the 5 elements Chaos Sutra on her body, accidentally becoming Xianxia today. It can be said to be a blessing in disguise. My sister is really amazing. She has actually seen this formation? Is there any way to break it? Beside him, the red-haired fairy who had just floated over to show her kindness immediately began to say good things and at the same time tested Xianxia's tone. Sister, you are really joking. Xianxia raised her brows, and then said, if my guess is correct, this formation will be the star movement formation. If you want to break through it with the formation, I'm afraid it won't be that easy for a while. However, but there is a way, you can try it. Xianxia's words immediately shocked all the monks. I wonder, Master Zhong, how to break this formation? Fairy Xianxia immediately asked seriously, as if her companion Lingzun swordsman had nothing to do with her at all. It's the star-shifting formation, so this formation must be related to the stars, Zhong Yingxia said with a faint smile. As long as you don't mind the trouble and smash the stars one by one, you can break out of the formation if you think about it. Crush the stars. Everyone frowned. They had been walking in the void for a long time, but they had never thought about this. Some people speculated that the secret was in the stars, but they couldn't think of breaking the stars anyway. Yes, if the stars are destroyed, you can break out of the formation if you want. There seem to be a lot of stars, but there seem to be a lot of us. This is also the reason why Zhong Yingxia wants to establish his authority. At first he guessed that this was after the Dozhuan Xing shift formation, suffering from his own powerlessness and only 3 people in the tribulation stage behind him. But now, everything has become simpler. Sure enough, Zhong Yingxia proposed a method to break the formation, and the others were immediately eager to try it. If she hadn't given the order, everyone would have wanted to see if they could smash these stars. Zhong Yingxia was very satisfied with this, smiled slightly, and said, "Thank you all." These monks were not aware of these suddenly polite words, and flew upward one after another, shattering the nearest stars. "Sister, won't you go?" Then, Zhong Yingxia turned to look at the red girl fairy next to her, still with that slight smile on her face. "Sister, wait a moment, sister will come as soon as she goes." The red girl fairy's expression froze, and she followed the crowd away. She thought she could hug Zhong Yingxia to show her affection, but she didn't expect that she was not treated differently. And she never expected that she would become a part of Zhong Yingxia's cultivation plan. In the great universe world, the flood receded, and the world lake turned into the world sea. The isolated island and the great universe world were connected as one, nourished by the original power of this world. The elixirs that had been planted by Mu incarnation were also growing rapidly. This scene was an unexpected surprise. It seems that after the growth of the elixir slows down, the universe world will be considered stable, right? But when will my body be able to move? Zuyun murmured, but suddenly found that his body could move at some point. If you look closely, you will see that the starry sky is very familiar. Aren't those dazzling stars the 28 constellations? He touched his head and flew towards the ground, landing directly in front of the world tree. "Master, are you back?" Zuyun usually appeared from a distance, either flying quickly or walking slowly, but he had never been seen coming down from the sky. The world tree also looked extremely surprised, and at the same time he let Sangu and the others down. Zuyun smiled and said, "Isn't this the first time that the fragments of the universe have been fused? I didn't know that I would encounter such a situation, appearing directly in the sky." Sangu said excitedly on the side, "Master, that island was created, but did it scare me?" Zuyun was about to reply, but saw the world tree shaking its branches again and putting down Zhao Kamang's mummy. His face froze, and Sangu immediately exclaimed, "Old Zhao." When Zuyun sent Zhao Kamang in, he was directly on the side of world tree. Sangu didn't know about it. If it weren't for the fusion of the fragments, he might not even know about it. "Master," Sangu suddenly raised his head and looked at Zuyundeo, "why did Lao Zhao die so miserably?" "Well." Zuyun sighed and slowly told what happened to Zhao Kamang. Everyone fell silent. Even World Mountain did not know when the spirit surfaced and appeared here. They had known each other for a long time, but when they suddenly saw the corpse, they couldn't even say a word. Old Zhao, why are you so stupid?" It wasn't until Zuyun finished speaking that Sangu murmured to himself and prepared to leave lonely, but suddenly, he was shaken and said in surprise, "Xiaohuo, I can smell Xiaohuo's breath. Also, I can smell Xiaohuo, and a stranger." As he spoke, he looked towards the sea of the world. "It's Xiaohuo, The other stranger, is my master. Mu incarnation took Xiaohuo and Yesuanhua into the fragments of the great universe and never released them. After arriving in the spirit world, they could not be released. Naturally, they merged with the great universe world. Master's master. Sangha was stunned, and World Tree also spoke at this time, saying, "Who am I, and why are there still monks in the pill-forming stage appearing in that fragment?" Zuyun chuckled lightly, turned Zhao Kamang's mummy into powder, took out a jade box containing elixirs from the ring, and finally buried it in the world mountain. Old Zhao is from the world of Dazhu, let him rest here. Old tree, holy mountain, I will go there to have a look. After that, Zuyun flew up and flew towards the isolated island. Before he landed, in mid-air, he saw Yesuan who was standing quietly in front of the platform on the island, as if he was in trance. Xiaohuo, on the other hand, didn't dare to move, and seemed not to notice Zuyun's arrival at all. It looks more like he is helping Yesuanhua protect the law. Zuyun did not disturb Yesuanhua, but landed gently. Xiaohuo, I'm here, you go back first. Master? Have you returned to that world? Seeing Zuyun, Xiaohuo immediately asked. He was in a coma and was taken into the island fragments by the wood avatar. If there wasn't too much movement during the fusion, he might not have been able to wake up. After waking up, he felt that the breath was becoming more familiar. Before he took a closer look, he saw a golden ball of light coming towards him and diving into the platform. Sun Suanhua also woke up suddenly, and then stood there without moving for several days. He did not dare to leave the island to investigate the situation. Yes, this isolated island has merged with the original world. You take good care of yourself, Lao Zhao, I have buried him under the old tree. Old Zhao. Xiaohuo's expression darkened. He knew what happened to Zhao Kamang when Yao Fuzong took over the body. I just didn't expect that when I saw him again, he would already be buried. By the way, Master, Xiaohuo seemed to have remembered something and said, what about the power of the wood spirit in my body? Don't worry about it, maybe the old tree will help you solve the problem. Xiaohuo has been seriously injured for a long time and has never been able to recover. It was Mu Qingxin who wanted to take over his body all the time. However, she was not strong enough to completely control the pseudo-wood spirit bead, which caused the wood spirit power on one side of Xiaohuo to be depleted. Demon consciousness, on the other hand, is providing vitality. This is the result of a delicate balance. The pseudo-wood spirit bead is something created by World Tree with the help of the wood spirit bead. It can naturally solve the troubles in Xiaohuo's body. Thank you, Master. Xiaohuo bowed, then gathered the little remaining demon power in his body, flew across the world sea, and returned to the ancestral tree. Zuyun walked slowly towards Yesuanhua. He knew that the golden light at that time must be the formation immortal at the volcanic universe, but for some reason, it was sucked into it by this platform. It stands to reason that this array immortal is the weapon immortal of Dazhu glazed mirror, and there is no way that he and Yesuanhua have any intersection, right? But Zuyun was keenly aware that this might be his master's opportunity. After getting closer, Zuyun suddenly realized. Yesuanhua is also proficient in formations, and when the formation immortals integrated into this platform, incredible scenes appeared. I saw extremely complicated formation patterns appearing on the platform. No intersection? Obviously the connection was formed because of the formation. I think Master entered Samadhi because of the formation pattern. Speaking of which, Master has so many ways, but I don't know which one he is most proficient in. Zuyun already knew it in his heart and quietly retreated. Yesuanhua might not even know he was here. Returning to the world tree, Zuyun told all the living beings, my master is enlightened there. If he can wake up. Master, tell him about the situation in this world. World tree looked over there, then turned back and asked. Let's not talk about it for now, Zuyun sighed and said, once you come to the world of the universe, it will go against the laws of heaven in the original world, and it will become more difficult to break through. You can test his tone first and see if he is willing to stay. If you are willing, it's best. If not, tell him what the impact will be, but don't mention me for the time being. Old Shu understands. World Tree has lived for a very long time, and has had friendships with ancient gods like Yaoyang. He understands the ways of the world, and knew Zuyun's worries, so he agreed immediately. Good work. Zuyun smiled slightly and felt that it was almost time. It was time to leave and return to the Demon Refining Tower. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1259. There was no movement at all on the 9th floor of the Demon Refining Tower. Zuyun carefully observed the ground, just like when Zufeng had just left. They haven't come up yet. Zuyun couldn't help but wonder. He had stayed in the world of Dazhu for long enough, and wanted to come out and see if they had gained nothing before leaving. As a result, he gained nothing. Just as he was about to enter the world of the universe again, the light door suddenly shook, and a figure appeared on the 9th floor. When he discovered that there was someone here, a ray of spiritual consciousness quickly rushed over. Boy, are you that Zuyun? This is none other than Ling Zun Sword Master. After he was injured by 3 people in the tribulation period, he had been lying down and pretending to be dead. He never destroyed a star in the Dozwan star shifting formation, but he discovered the clues when those people broke the formation, and finally escaped from the Dozwan star shifting formation first. Discovered the light gate, and then rushed up the light gate. He looks rough, but in fact he is extremely thoughtful. Moreover, the compass has always been in his hand, and starting from the 2nd level, every light door will be discovered by the compass. Without the interference of other factors, the Ling Zun swordsman naturally found the entrance easily, and then came to the 9th level by level. Layer. Dare you ask me, senior, why you know the villain's name? Zuyun was horrified, secretly wondering if this person was the helper Zhuang Bifan had found. But when he saw that the Ling Zun swordsman's aura was disordered, he was obviously seriously injured, and there were even obvious slap marks on his face, he couldn't help but feel a little confused. With his ability, you can feel that this is a person who has transcended the tribulation stage. But I have never heard of anyone in the tribulation stage being slapped in the face to such an extent. This is humiliating. For those in the tribulation period, a slap in the face is a mortal enemy. Based on the above information, Zuyun naturally dared to take a risk, especially since Ling Zun swordsman announced his name as soon as he came up, but he did not kill him. Humph, how can I let you juniors know about my Taoist and magical powers? Tell me quickly, what is so mysterious about this fairy tower, and why can you get here before me? It's not that Ling Zun swordsman doesn't want to kill Zuyun, it's just that the time hasn't come yet. Not only did he have an enmity with the Red Girl Fairy, he was treated like a chicken by Xianxia and killed in front of the other monks. If he wants revenge, he needs to find the mystery of this tower as soon as possible, but time waits for no one. By the time they break out of the formation, it will be too late. If he killed Zuyun, he would have to search for everything from this tower, but through Zuyun, the time would go much faster. Back to senior, Zuyun was so thoughtful that he made a guess and immediately said, the villain also came to this tower accidentally, but he is proficient in the formation and can break through the formation. It's just that this tower is actually a formation tower, and the villain has just received the formation inheritance in this altar, just because of that. What? Formation tower. The Ling Zun swordsman did not dare to make any hasty conclusions. After all, there was nothing but encounters along the way. He was not interested in the match, and his face turned gloomy. It's useless to him, but if Xianxia finds out that he has such a scheme, he will definitely die. When he thought about the tribulation period when those three haggard men could die almost at any time, a deep fear showed in his eyes. But this look was caught by the keen Zuyun. Senior, he rolled his eyes and said, this villain has learned all the major formations in this formation. If Senior doesn't believe it, you can set up these formations one by one. All the formations. The spiritual master swordsman raised his eyebrows and suddenly caught a spiritual light in his mind, like a straw falling into the water. Boy, can you set up the so-called star-shifting formation? When he was lying in the void pretending to be dead, he might have heard Xianxia announce the name of the formation with his own eyes, and he even knew that these people had spent countless hours trying to break through the formation. It seems that all you need to do is destroy the stars, but these stars are like running to death while looking at the mountain. They look very close, but they are extremely far away when you want to go past them. They are also erratic, and it is impossible to determine the exact position. This question made Zuyun aware of the problems faced by Lingzun's swordsman, but when he reported the name of the formation, he was even more shocked. Not many people know the name of this formation, but this is obviously the first time he has seen the Spirit Master swordsman. But the situation was urgent at the moment. He didn't have time to think, so he immediately said, Senior, if you want a villain to arrange it, you can definitely arrange it, but this star-moving formation requires spiritual stones. Spiritual stone? I have it. Boy, how many do you want? As a sword cultivator, Lingzun swordsman has a common characteristic with sword cultivators, that is, he does not need many spiritual stones for practice, which also makes him extremely wealthy. Unlike ordinary monks who save up their wealth to buy spiritual herbs and elixirs. The Spirit Master swordsman took out a storage bag and poured out a lot of high-grade spiritual stones. Even Zuyun swallowed his saliva when he saw it, there were tens of thousands of them. Moreover, in such a small space, it is more than enough to set up a great formation of stars. Senior, this formation is named after stars. Naturally, the more the better. A spiritual stone represents a star, but I dare to ask Senior, does this formation kill people or trap people? If it is just if you want to trap people, this is enough, but if you want to kill people, I don't know if it's enough. Can you still kill people? The Lingzun swordsman's eyes narrowed, and he flashed a vicious look, and said, if you can kill people, that would be great. You quickly set up the formation, and when the time comes, I tell you who to kill, you will kill whoever. But boy, I still can't trust you, otherwise you wouldn't be able to play around with Ying Vuqiang. After saying that, a flash of sword light flashed through his spiritual consciousness and quickly disappeared into his zifu. This is my soul's sword energy. If you have any thoughts that are detrimental to me, this sword light will kill your soul immediately. Boy, start setting up the formation. There was no doubt in Lingzun swordsman's tone that he couldn't help with the formation, so he took the time to sit on the ground and began to practice healing. Zuyun had a lot of thoughts in his heart, but his hands kept moving. He picked up the spirit stones from the air and began to set up a large formation. Obviously, the person who wields the Spirit Master sword will kill someone who has injured him. Such a powerful enemy is truly terrifying. In addition, how did he know the name of the star movement formation? Zuyun was puzzled and worried about how to deal with the sword light buried in Zi mansion. With the power of his soul in his transformation stage, he couldn't resolve it. Now, following the instructions of the Spirit Master swordsman is just a delaying tactic. The only variable is that this person wants to use the hands of others to kill the person he is waiting for. I think the sword light will dissipate instantly in my Zi mansion. Zuyun's hands moved very quickly, controlling several spiritual stones with every breath. For this purpose, thousands of them were used. The 12 major demon clans were not here, and he did not need to join the law of destiny. Although there are fewer changes, high-grade spiritual stones can also make the formation more powerful. An hour later, when the formation was completed, Zhu Yun's eyes moved slightly and he said, "Senior, the formation is ready. I wonder if Senior can tell me about the situation so that I can be prepared." The Spirit Master Swordsman opened his eyes, his breathing became much more balanced, and his face looked much better. He did not directly answer Zhu Yun's question, but said, "Boy, you activate this formation first and let me see it. What's your ability? Also, I warn you, don't try to play tricks with me. Even though this formation tower is inherited from the Immortals, you are weak and want to escape from my control." Zhu Yun's face was submissive, but in fact he had a final escape route in his heart. At worst, he could escape into the world of the universe. Even if he was a world apart, he wouldn't be able to control the light of the sword. But these old monsters who have lived long enough cannot be underestimated. If they guess where they disappeared and reappeared, and stay here all the time, I am afraid that they will suffer a loss in the end. Unless absolutely necessary, Dazhu world still cannot be used in front of others. Senior, don't worry. I'm only in the stage of becoming a god. How can I dare to be petty in front of my senior? Zhu Yun was extremely respectful, and then stretched out his hand to pinch the formation formula. Call out. The originally dark space suddenly turned into a void. The Spirit Master Swordsman looked around in disbelief. Just like the previous formation, he didn't even notice the feeling he had when he first entered the formation. Taking a closer look, he saw the difference. The stars in this array are bigger and brighter. Boy, your formation seems a little different from the formation on the first level. When faced with the question, Zhu Yun had already thought of his words and said, "Because all the seniors gave me are high-grade spiritual stones. And the biggest feature of this formation is that the stronger the source of power, the stronger the formation will be." Hearing this, Ling Zun's swordsman's eyes lit up. "You mean, this formation will be stronger than the formation on the first level under the mountain?" "That's right." Zhu Yun heard what he said and followed his words, "Senior, I don't know. Now I think back on it. The formation at the foot of the mountain was just to test whether the people who stepped on the formation were in line with the inheritance of the formation tower, so it's not intended to hurt anyone, it's just to trap them. But when the senior instructs the villain to set up a formation to kill the enemy, it will naturally be different." After that, he even made another formation in front of the Ling Zun swordsman in a serious manner. "Call out! Call out! Call out!" Not far away, 3 starlights flashed across and collided violently, causing a violent explosion. The aftermath of the spiritual power rippled, and the starry sky trembled. But under Zhu Yun's exquisite control, the aftermath dissipated just in front of the Ling Zun swordsman. "Well. Ha ha ha. Boy, if you can solve this crisis for me, I will spare your life." The Spirit Master Swordsman laughed wildly, his eyes filled with surprise and joy. This time, not only will his great revenge be avenged, but he will definitely get all the immortal treasures in the secret realm of Ascension. When it comes to spiritual weapons and magic weapons, he can't compare to anyone else. But the Spirit Stone? He has plenty. If this kid sets up a formation, who will be his opponent? Furthermore, who can stop him when he encounters the formation set up by the Immortals? The Spirit Master Swordsman was satisfied, and originally thought of trapping the person with a formation so that he could return to the first level and finally escape from the tower. Unexpectedly, Zhu Yun gave him a big surprise. "Boy, wait until my enemies come up and give them a surprise." After laughing wildly, the Ling Zun swordsman laughed sinisterly. "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 1260. Zhu Yun observed the situation and clearly guessed the situation faced by the Spirit Master Swordsman. He assured, "Senior, don't worry, since this formation is made of high-grade spiritual stones, It is extremely powerful. That's good, don't worry, kid, I won't kill you if I say I won't kill you. Of course, the premise is that you are obedient. The hatred in Ling Zun's swordsman's eyes flashed, and he said, but wait a minute, when you see the female cultivator in red, hit him hard. There are 2 female cultivators in red, and one of them is named Hong. The fairy child is in the tribulation stage. The other person is Xianxia, the leader of the 5 elements section. However, her realm is extremely weak and she is only in the void refining stage. The only thing about this girl that makes me worry is that she is in the void refining stage. She brought 3 veteran cultivators to overcome the tribulation. Zuyun was shocked. Xianxia, it was indeed Xianxia, she was here. In his original plan, he did not intend to completely listen to the words of the Spirit Master Swordsman and kill all the monks in the Duzwangxing shifting formation. With his current strength, even if he was clothed with tens of thousands of spirit stones, he would not be able to do that. Easy. The main crux of the problem lies in the murderous intention of the sword that the Spirit Master Swordsman planted in his body. He knew that such a powerful person who could transcend tribulations would take action immediately if he had the slightest suspicion and would never give him a chance to fight back. However, if Xianxia comes and kills him, the other 3 tribulation periods will definitely escape, and maybe the situation will change subtly. Moreover, Ling Zun's swordsman may not know that Dozhuan Xinyi has another meaning, which is the word shift. He can control the space transformation within the formation, and let some of them meet with his thoughts. As long as the Ling Zun sword master dies, the sword thought in his Zi mansion will naturally disappear. But just in case, the Spirit Master Swordsman launches a murderous intention when he is unable to defeat him. It seems that we still have to act according to the situation, look for the opportunity, and then leave the formation and hide in the world of the universe. Zuyun completed the plan in a moment. Compared with the previous escape, the death of the Ling Zun swordsman will be done once and for all. I dare to ask Senior, how many seniors are out there who have transcended the tribulation? Zuyun asked immediately. Not many, only a dozen people. The Ling Zun swordsman smiled sinisterly and said, boy, kill Xianxia and the Red Boy Fairy first, then kill the 3 tribulation stages, and finally, except for the female cultivator named Xianxia Fairy, don't let anyone else go. Senior, if there are more than a dozen people, it may not be possible to kill them all at once. The villain's strength is limited and it is difficult to do it. The Spirit Master Swordsman raised his eyebrows and said, then what can you do? I'm not in a hurry right now. Upon hearing this, Zuyun immediately said, Senior, if you have enough spirit stones, you can give it a try. Kill the Red Girl Fairy and Xianxia first, and then go out into the battle and replenish the consumed spirit stones outside. These words were easy to understand. The Ling Zun swordsman laughed and said, didn't I tell you that I don't have many things, I just have a lot of spiritual stones. After that, he took out 2 more storage bags and threw them over. There are 10,000 spirit stones in each bag, is that enough? Enough, enough. Zuyungzi smiled broadly, this really killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only did he get the spiritual stone, but he also had a reason to go out into battle. His star movement array has the entrance to the formation at the light gate, which means that as soon as those monks reach the 9th level, they will immediately enter the void. Very good, Ling Zun swordsman warned again, this is the benefit of listening to me, and it is also the purpose of me keeping you alive. It's natural for villains to take care of themselves, Senior, just don't worry. Zuyun promised again, but he couldn't help but think of how the 3 people in the tribulation stage would react if Xianxia died. Through the memory of Mu incarnation, he knew that these 3 tribulation ancestors were amazingly powerful and could actually fight against the immortal soul hammer. Let's go directly to the immortal mansion later. Anyway, whether it is the immortal mansion or the great universe world, this sword energy should be able to cut off the connection with the Spirit Master Swordsman. Just as he was thinking about it, he heard Ling Zun's swordsman suddenly ask, "Boy Zuyun, are you a casual cultivator or from which sect?" Back to senior, Zuyun suddenly came back to his senses and said, "This kid is a casual cultivator," and later joined the Xianguang sect. Xianguang sect. The Ling Zun sword master looked disdainful and said, "That's also a casual cultivator." As soon as he heard this, Zuyun knew that Ling Zun sword master should have heard of the reputation of Xianguang sect, so he said, "Senior, it's not that we casual cultivators are helpless. If we unite, we can be considered a force at least. No will allow other sects to oppress me." "That's true," Ling Zun swordsman smiled and said, "however, it is better to rely on yourself than relying on others. If you are strong yourself, who else dares to bully you and humiliate you? I am also a casual cultivator. When it comes to fighting alone, no one in the tribulation stage below is my opponent." Zuyun was disdainful. "Then you were beaten by the 3 tribulation stages behind Xianxia?" He would never dare to ask such revealing words. Ling Zun's sword master is not interested in Zuyun's life experience. In his opinion, it is just a chess piece that can be temporarily used in the secret realm of ascension, just like the compass in his hand. With no other use than hunting for treasure, the spirit master swordsman sat down cross-legged, placed the spirit sword across his legs, and closed his eyes to rest. He didn't know when those people would break into the formation, and he neither dared to practice chi training, nor did he dare to use qigong to heal his injuries. After another moment, there was finally movement from the other side of the light gate, and a female cultivator who had transcended tribulation suddenly stepped into the formation. The spiritual master swordsman suddenly opened his eyes. "Fairy Xianxia? How could she come in first?" From what he saw, since Fairy Xianxia was on the same side as him, she would definitely not be welcomed under the situation where Xianxia was in control of the overall situation. Even if she came in, she would only be the last one to come in. Even if Xianxia was broad-minded, Fairy Xianxia probably knew what was going on. While the spiritual master was thinking deeply about the reason, Zuyun also asked, "Senior, is she the Fairy Xianxia? Then, except for her, everyone can be killed." The spiritual master swordsman pondered, "Boy, can you control the formation and send Fairy Xianxia here?" "Of course you can, but please take good care of me, so that Fairy Xianxia won't suddenly attack me when she sees me as a stranger." "You should be careful," the spiritual master swordsman smiled. "Relax, Fairy Xianxia is not that kind of person." "That's good." Zuyun pinched the formation formula, and several stars in the formation suddenly lit up. Fairy Xianxia was still wondering why she encountered this formation again, and she was attracted by the starlight again. The stars in the Dozhuan Xinyi formation below were like dead objects. But before she could see the difference between these stars, she heard a familiar laugh. "Fairy Xianxia, don't panic, this is the formation I asked this kid to set up." Fairy Xianxia was shocked, and then she realized that there was not only a spiritual master swordsman, but also a strange male cultivator of the divine transformation realm. Zuyun. She was also very careful and guessed Zuyun's identity immediately. Zuyun bowed quickly and said, "Greetings, Senior. Boy, are all the mysteries in this fairy tower created by you?" Fairy Xianxia frowned and asked, but she felt strange. She turned to look at the spiritual master swordsman and said, "Sword master, I thought you ran away, but I didn't expect you to enter the 9th floor of the fairy tower first." "Run? How can I think of running after being humiliated like this?" After that, he stood up holding the spirit sword and said, "My spirit sword has been thirsty for a long time. But unfortunately, I am seriously injured, so I can only let this boy set up the formation to help." Fairy Xianxia's eyes flashed with a strange color, and said, "This Zuyun's attainments in the art of formation are indeed good, but with his state of transformation, how can he kill Xianxia?" The spiritual master swordsman laughed and said, Do you think this is the formation of the stars below? The formation below is just the inheritance of the formation fairy. Test, and this boy Zuyun passed the formation safely, and has already obtained the inheritance of the formation fairy. Not to mention, this formation was set up by the boy Zuyun and controlled by him, and the formation can be transformed into a killing formation. Moreover, this formation is all set up by top-grade spirit stones. As long as the boy Zuyun has a thought, thousands of stars in the formation can attack one person together. What does this realm gap matter? Fairy Xianxia exclaimed, this formation is so powerful. That's natural, the spirit master said proudly, if I hadn't ordered Zuyun to transfer you here, you wanted to break the formation with the method that Xianxia came up with. As long as there are enough spirit stones, you will never be able to break this formation. The stars move, it turns out that the stars can move, that's it? Fairy Xianxia suddenly raised her eyes, her beautiful eyes were like starry eyes, and her deep pupils seemed to be empty, reflecting the stars. She looked at Zuyun and said, Zuyun, this is the tower of the immortal formation, so you got the inheritance in the tower. Yes, I got the inheritance of the immortal formation, this formation is the immortal formation. Hearing the affirmative answer, the fairy Xianxia smiled brightly, and suddenly pinched a spell in her hand, and the majestic spiritual power gushed out, and the murderous intent also flashed, but she had a peerless smile on her face. Zuyun's face changed drastically. How could he dodge at such a close distance? It took less than a breath, no, not even 1/10 of a breath. In a flash, the spiritual master shouted loudly. Xianxia, what are you doing? The knife flashed, and a domineering wild knife slashed at the spell. Zuyun was an important chess piece for his revenge and treasure hunting. As long as he was in this tower, he was closely related to his life. But who would have thought that when the spirit knife slashed down, the spell suddenly turned around, not only avoiding the cut of the knife, but also turned around and blasted towards the eyebrows of the spirit swordsman. Boom! The sudden action of the fairy Xianxia was obviously premeditated, and the spirit swordsman was only trying to save Zuyun instead of killing the enemy. And with his sword skills, there is no such thing as self-protection. In this way, the spell fell on the forehead of the spirit swordsman. The brilliance of the spell, mixed with the red and white mixed brain fluid, scattered in the void like strange fireworks. Boy, not everyone can deceive me, Xianxia. The spirit swordsman became a headless corpse, and the fairy Xianxia smiled faintly and uttered a word softly. But suddenly, her face changed.